Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day. It's a new life for me, yeah. It's a new dawn, it's a new day. It's a new life for me. Ooh, and I'm feeling good. Welcome to the Jaybefaunt channel. My name is Jaybefaunt. Lord, it's so good to see you on this New Year's Eve. Yes, the Jaybefaunt channel is available on all major podcast platforms, so go ahead, subscribe to me there. Also part of the Revolutionary Blackout Network, so you can see me every single Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursdays. And then you can catch me here typically on Tuesdays at 2. So good to see all of you here watching me live, taking time out to spend your Sunday evening with your good old pal JB. If you guys have not already, go ahead and subscribe to my Substack. You guys can go to jaybefaunt.substack.com so that you guys are aware of whenever I upload clips, have live streams, or I upload any articles so that you guys can read. All right, so go ahead and go there as well. Thank you so very much. Also, if you guys have not, please go ahead and give it a like, or you can share, or you can subscribe if you guys want to partake in some JB deliciousness and push me out there into the algorithm. Go ahead and do it. So good to see all of you here today. Good to see everybody who is in the chat. I'm going to say just a couple hellos, and then we'll get our guests in here in a second. We have Norman Keena coming in, being the first one in here. Norman, you're here. Good to see you. Hobbs says, okay, you named the stream The Good, Bad, and the Weird, but have you seen a Korean spaghetti western of the same name? No, I didn't know about that, but sounds interesting. Good to see you also. CBC voters also in the chat saying 100% forget that year. Don't forget to take the poll that is in the chat. So if you guys would like to take the poll, it just talks about, was 2023 a good year? Was it a bad year? Was it just kind of like a neutral mint? Or you're like, throw 2023 into the fire? Whichever one you want to do, just let a brother know. All right. All right. We have Penguin says, save the children from, I'm sorry, what? First of all, okay, if you're going to come into my chat, you're going to realize, number one, there is no trans industry. You got the wrong one. And number two, by the way, when it comes to actually talking about different people from different marginalized communities, I stand with the marginalized. So you got the wrong one. So look, and you had to subscribe to put it in there. But if you haven't known anything about me right now, you know that I stand with all workers, including trans workers. So there's no trans industry. If you think there's a trans industry, that also means you think it's a black industry and you think it's a woman industry. Clear? All right, let's go. Miguel coming in saying peace. Good to see you, Miguel. Nice to have you. Nessa coming in saying Happy New Year, JB. Happy New Year to you, Nessa. Serena says Happy New Year's Eve, comrades. I have a feeling next year will be eventful. I think so too. Year of the Dragon. Yes, I was born in a rat year, by the way. But this is a year that makes you want to go back in time and slap the fish that decided to come on land. That would be an interesting name of a rock band, Slapfish. Anywho, let's continue. All right, Ilhanar, good to see you. It says hello to Miguel and other people. Good to see you, Ilhanar. Nice to have you. Zach coming in saying greetings from 2024 in Spain. RBN fam. Oh, hey, Happy New Year to you already. Good to see you. Robbie Burns coming in saying JB, yes, coming in. Give them the burn, baby. I can feel it. All right, so, and hello to everybody that's watching on Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, Rockfin, and Rumble, as well as YouTube. Good to have you in here as well. I'm going to bring my comrade in, KD bringing it in to ring in the new year with moi. Good to see you, bro.
Good to see you too. Happy New Year to you and to the rest of the chat too. I'm excited. We're excited. Oh yeah, very excited. I like it.
Yeah, so last time we spoke, you were writing more articles. You have written some more articles subsequently, as of late, which have been really good articles. So if you guys have not, you guys can go to his Substack. Actually, let me put the link to his Substack in the chat. But he does a lot of great work as far as his what he does as far as his Substack goes too. So go ahead and read his. Let me make sure I get. Yep, I got it. So it's called The Chronicles for Black Political Power. Oh, I can't talk today. I should have had some tea, but I was just like, nah, I'm just gonna have some water. So, and I was thinking about getting a glass of wine, but I was like, I don't know. But it kind of would have been fun.
Wine would have been appropriate, I think.
Yeah, wine definitely would have been appropriate, but I was just like, Plus, I didn't have enough time. I was doing other stuff. Anyways, so there you go. That's what there. And so I just wanted to speak about some of the stories that, man, this thing really itches. Let me take this thing off. Some of the stories that have came across me over the last year. And some of these stories are going to be some kind of heart-wrenching stories, but I also have some good news stories that happened over the year that we may have forgotten about that I also want to talk about too. So this is going to be kind of, in between. So I would like to talk about that. One of the stories that I wanted to talk about, and let me make sure I get, yep. Okay. So this was one of the stories that I found, and I was just like, what? Really? Let's take a look. Let me share this. Let me share my screen really quick. I'm not sure if you heard of this story, but let's take a look. See? Yeah. So I talked about this earlier this year. This says New York University Emergency Department prioritizes the wealthy for treatment. This came out January 2nd last year. And so this one talks about how New York University essentially was guilty of prioritizing, the wealthy people within their ER. And here is one of the main points in the line. It says dozens of doctors and other healthcare workers report that administrators pressure them to treat rich and influential patients immediately for minor complaints, thus forcing patients with potentially life-threatening conditions to wait for urgently needed care. And so just as I've never heard your reaction to this story, but what have you ever heard the story? And if so, if not, what is your reaction?
Yeah, I actually haven't seen this story before, but it sounds like it's describing what the whole wait times problem that people say would be the issue of a Medicare for all system. Mm-hmm. But it looks like in a regular old capitalist system, the wait times are still there. You just if you're not rich, then you experience them, and if you are, then no wait times. And so that's my immediate reaction to the story.
Yeah, even still, it goes even further here. It says this practice, which is not unique to NYU, violates the principle of medical triage in the operation of emergency departments. Under this principle, the sickest patients receive treatment first, without regard for their ability to pay for care, and patients with less serious presentations. I'm sorry. Yeah. I can't read today. Presentations wait their turn. More fundamentally, NYU's discriminatory practice illustrates that the provision of healthcare is not dominated by social inequality in the profit system. So this basically goes back to show exactly what you were talking about, when really we actually do have a triage system, but our triage actually corresponds to the amount of money you have to pay versus who is the sickest first. And so this goes to show why a lot of us are now, or have been, at least for the last couple of years, been pushing for a more single-payer system. I personally do not even find a single-payer system good enough anymore. I think we need to have a full nationalization of our healthcare system so that we include hospitals so that they do not no longer do this as well. But I honestly do think that, yes, this makes the case even stronger for a nationalization of our healthcare system. Your thoughts?
No, I agree with that. This is clear proof that, you leave the freedom to companies and private entities to make these decisions. They're going to prioritize money over people because that's the bottom line for a capitalist.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things, and this is New York University, so of course they make their money a lot of times through not just tuition, but they also do donors, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things is, I'm not sure if Savvy Sabs is in the chat, but if she is, shout out to her. But she talks about how a lot of these universities also, whether they're private, some even have public universities where they will receive what's it called? I'm forgetting the name of it. It is
like vouchers or something?
Donations. But these donations that they receive from the alumni and people like that, they will work for or try to get as much money or keep the alumni happy, for these donations. But at the same time, it's really, it's like you're trying to keep the alumni happy, just like you're trying to keep the shareholders happy, And if you're just trying to keep the shareholders happy, that means that you're just trying to keep the money up as much as you possibly can. So when it comes to looking at, universities like this and the way they treat their patients, this is why we need a system that is completely devoid of profit.
Yes. Oh, yep.
All right. So that was that story. I'm not sure. Did you guys remember that story? I covered that early in 2023, but that was a really interesting story. I was just like, man, that was crazy. But now we're going to move on to the next one. I would like to share. Let me see. Oh, let me see. Now I saw this as well. I was just like, this really needs to be talked about as well. Have you ever heard of the journalist Mumia Abu Jamal?
Was she the one that was assassinated?
No. So Mumia Abu Jamal is a prominent journalist. And so he was convicted of a murder, but he was.
Oh, I didn't recognize the name, but I recognized the face.
Yeah. So this was a headline from earlier this year. Mumia Abu Jamal's 4-decade quest to overturn his murder conviction has again been denied by a Philly judge. So he's 69 years old, and he said he was convicted fatally of shooting Philadelphia police officer Daniel Faulkner in 1981. It says the Philadelphia judge has dismissed the latest appeal from Mumia Abu Jamal, for who nearly 40 years has been seeking to overturn his murder conviction and one of the city's most notorious crimes, the fatal shooting of a police officer. It says Common Pleas Court Judge Lucretia Clemens wrote in the opinion last week that none of the three claims Abu Jamal raised in his most recent petition warranted relief. Abu Jamal, 69, has sought to convince Clemens his conviction was tainted by new evidence discovered in 2019 inside of file boxes found at the district attorney's office. That evidence, Abu Jamal argued, showed prosecutors had illegally withheld materials, casting doubt on credibility of two key witnesses, and showed the trial prosecutor had improperly sought to disqualify the most potential jurors who weren't white. But Clemens was not persuaded. She ruled that the new information regarding the witnesses were not strong enough to cast doubt on the overall strength of Abu Jamal's conviction, and said that the claim about potential jurors was old and already had been extensively litigated. One of Abu Jamal's attorneys, Ben Grote, said that they plan to appeal Clemens' rulings. The district attorney's office declined to comment. So, a lot of people talk about people like Julian Assange and talk about how it's really important for somebody like Julian Assange to receive justice. So, and there's a war on journalism within our country. Mumia Abu-Jamal is also a journalist, and people also, kind of synonymously talk about them, one and the same. So, your thoughts about Mumia so far as what you know about the case so far? Katie, you still there?
Okay, there you are. Yeah.
Okay, you're back.
Yeah. Oh, all right. Yeah. So based on what you just, the treatment of a political prisoner, a black one, at that, it makes me think of the hurdles that Huey Newton had to go through when he was on trial for it was either a double homicide or it was just a singular homicide of a police officer that caused by a shootout that was caused by the police that ended up killing one of the younger Panthers at the time. And it's a joke to think that our justice system is anything but an injustice system, considering that men like Assange are still in prison, and Abu Jamal has been stuck for over, you said, since 1981.
Yeah.
So it's almost, we're in 60 years. No, not 60 years. I'm tripping. It's 40 years. We're in like the past the 40 years, the 40 years section, and with all that evidence that can exonerate him, it's to be expected of a system as ours to deny him that right. I do hope that wherever the appeal has gone, moving forward, that it will be in his favor.
Yeah. This reminds me of what happened to George Jackson. He was also unjustly convicted. He wrote the book Blood in My Eye. I read this book on my Rockfin channel. So if you guys are subscribed to my Rockfin and want to listen to the reading and discussion of this book, that's on there. And it also reminds me of what happened to Asada Shakur. I read her book on this channel as well. If you guys go into the playlist, you guys can see my reading and discussion of this book. But the thing is that what happened to people like George Jackson and Asada Shakur, as well as Mumia Abu-Jamal, was just a really it shows that our system is really an injustice system, and is really just to keep the second class of citizens in this country in a perpetual state of slavery. And anybody that tries to go up against the powers that be, then they will be made examples of. So namely people like Mumia Abu-Jamal, people like Huey P. Newton, people like Asada Shakur and George Jackson and the like. So it just, I mean, hell, it happened to people like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., right? I mean, he wrote his letter from the Birmingham jail. So it just goes to show where if you are somebody who tries to fight against the system, you will be victims even further of the system. So yeah. So yes, that was that story that happened as well, about Mumia Abu-Jamal.
What was he incarcerated for?
He was incarcerated for the alleged killing of a police officer, which, if I remember correctly, it was not true that he was actually the one who killed the police officer. But it was, so yeah, unfortunately, that's what they do. It was, similar to what they did to Asada Shakur, because they tried to make it seem like she was the one that pulled the trigger against a police officer that was killed, when in reality, with Asada Shakur, I think the police officer was killed by friendly fire. Because Asada Shakur was shot in her left hand, and she couldn't even move her hand because,
Yeah, it also reminds me of when Angela Davis was accused of helping a convict try to escape, and she was basically exiled for like a little while, and they had the whole free Angela movement as well. But they'll find any way they connect it. Black people do not have the luxury of avoiding generalizations and being connected to things they have no connection to. It's like
yeah. So I'm going to share this next one. This is actually, this was crazy. I saw this. I was just like, what in the world? So let me share this next story. This is going to be a video. So we're going to go back into the medical system. This was, oof. When I heard this, I was like, damn, no, they didn't.
Tonight, shocking allegation.
Okay, so this one has to deal with nursing school students. This was earlier this year. And I want to get your reaction to this as well. This is going to be a big one.
Tonight, shocking allegations. $100 million scheme selling thousands of nursing diplomas, now called fake by federal prosecutors.
Our healthcare professionals play an important role in our public health system. We therefore expect our healthcare professionals to be who they claim they are.
More than 24 people, a group of school administrators and recruiters, have been accused in a wire fraud operation to sell phony nursing degrees, creating what prosecutors describe as a shortcut around educational requirements set by the state nursing boards.
They prepared and sold fake nursing school diplomas and transcripts to nursing candidates, knowing that the candidates would use those false documents to, one, sit for nursing board examinations.
The investigation, known as Operation Nightingale, feds issued warrants in 5 states and say that 3 schools were involved, all in Florida: Sacred Heart Institute, Siena College of Health, and Palm Beach School of Nursing. All
your thoughts.
Well, that's actually terrifying.
Yeah.
Someone will go into a urgent care or something like that, and your nurse bought their degree. Like, that's, nurses are actually, they're the ones that actually touch you for the most part. And if they, no, that's terrifying.
Yeah. So let's continue, because when I saw this, I was just like, what? I even told Sabs about this. I was just like, did you know this was happening? She was like, no, this is crazy.
nursing. All 3 institutions have since shut down, so efforts to reach them were unsuccessful. But federal investigators allege between 2016 and 2021, more than 7,600 students obtained fake degrees, paying out about $15,000 each, for a total of $114 million.
These allegedly fraudulent documents may have allowed nurses to serve in critical healthcare roles.
More disturbing, authorities estimate about a third of the people that received fake diplomas, or nearly 2,300 people, are actually practicing nursing right now.
We have not learned of nor uncovered any evidence of patient harm stemming from these individuals potentially providing services to patients.
The DOJ says this isn't just about the training of those nurses involved, but the public's potential loss of trust in the healthcare industry.
When we take
This is why I say we need to have a full nationalization of our education system so that things like this don't happen. This is why, look, let me put this down for a second. This is why I do not trust for-profit colleges.
Mm-hmm.
Nope. Remember that ITT Technical Institute? Remember those Everest University commercials that would come on?
Yep, Kaiser, another one.
Yep. All them university commercials that would come on trying to get you to go to their school. And next thing you know, what? They're out of business. Why? Because they were doing some shady stuff behind the scenes.
So all those colleges were real colleges, right? Those are real institutions that sold fake degrees, or like what?
Some of them actually sold like real degrees and things like that, but at the same time, they were for profit. Kind of difficult to explain a little bit, but you know, they pushed, people to go to these schools so that they can, instead of going, like, for instance, to UCF, which is University of Central Florida, Valencia, oh my God, I'm blanking on the name of one of our universities. Rollins College and all these other ones. Instead of going to those, Florida A&M, others, it's just like, well, no, you guys can just go here and then you can learn technology here and you can get done in just a few months. And it's like, well, yeah, but is that education just as good? Number one. Number two, aren't you guys, kind of skipping out on some stuff that may be essential to learn? And the thing is that these colleges were really just for profit. They weren't really in the business of actually teaching. They were in business of collecting, tuition.
Yeah. So I guess I was asking if those were like actual colleges that had a sense that did have accreditation that you could earn some sort of associate's degree or anything like that there. How is it that they got caught selling these fake degrees, and yet the people who are punished will probably be like leadership, but yet the institution itself, it sounds like nothing's going to happen to it. And so what's going to stop them from, being smarter and selling another not so high stakes degree and doing that same thing over and over again?
Yeah, this is why I don't trust for-profit colleges. I don't think there should be a profit motive in education either. And so, and sorry, y'all, those of y'all who went to a private school, I just don't agree with for-profit education, period. I just don't. I think all education should be public.
Yeah.
But, and well funded. But that's
not based on property tax, like
not based on
actually designated funds.
Absolutely. All right, let's continue this.
When we take an injured son or daughter to a hospital emergency room, we don't expect, really cannot imagine, that the licensed practical nurse or registered nurse treating our child took a shortcut around educational and licensing requirements.
And Stephen Romo joins us now. Stephen, this is shocking and scary for a lot of people to think about this. Do we know what happens now to these nurses who got these fake diplomas and are working right now?
Yeah, that's the scary thing. They're working right now. The last things people want to think about is this nurse actually, do they have a degree? Well, the FBI says that the list of those people, some 2,300 of them, has been given to each state's boards, and it's up to them to decide what action to take against these nurses. Now, we reached out to the National Council of State Boards of Nursing, and they say that could include losing their licenses. But as for charges that are already announced, those are focused on the people who were allegedly running those schools and handing out those fake degrees, Aaron.
Yeah, all you gotta do is find a couple of fall guys and the school is fine. Like that's fine.
Yeah. Let me see. MJR says you still have to pass a state board test to be an RN. Yeah. But is that the same thing for an LPN? Is that the same thing for, other different types of nurses? And so, or maybe they did pass, but the thing is they weren't taught all those different things like they needed to. Like once I don't know. It's just, it was a wild story, That's one of the things that caught my eye. I was just like, that was a ridiculous story that it shouldn't happen, period, really, in my view. So, yeah. Thank you, MJR, for that. So let's continue on. I want to go into this, a good news story. And so, yeah, I'm gonna do this next story. So there was a good news story about a podcasting company called Maximum Fun. And Maximum Fun actually turned themselves into a worker co-op. And so I was very interested in seeing this. And
Hey, it's Jesse, the owner of Maximum Fun, or
So I wanted to share this again, and just encourage people that there's a lot of companies where they're maybe small, where you could literally turn these companies into worker co-ops so that there's, worker ownership and democracy in the workplace, and you could do just like Maximum Fun. So let's take a look at this. I thought this was very encouraging.
hey, it's Jesse, the owner of Maximum Fun, or the current owner of Maximum Fun, because I have a big announcement. I'm not going to be the owner of Maximum Fun anymore. Or actually, to be completely accurate, I am going to become, along with all of my colleagues here at Max Fun, an employee owner of Maximum Fun, because we are about to become a 100% worker-owned cooperative. So yeah, I'll be owner of Maximum Fun.
And I will too.
And me.
And me. And so will I.
This guy. And I will too.
All of us. When you join Maximum Fun, you're directly supporting the people who make the podcast that you love.
And you're supporting all the folks who work behind the scenes.
Now, I could personally break down how all this is going to work for you, but I would rather that we do it together.
Let me settle in here.
Maximum Fun is going to be
Completely owned by its employees.
I'll be doing the same job I do every day.
And we'll be working on the same great shows.
We'll just get to have a little bit of a say in some of the bigger decisions now.
And we, the employees, will be electing the board of directors.
Jesse's not going anywhere. Our managing director, Bikram, not going anywhere. But now he's going to report to the board, and the board represents all of us.
The board is in charge of guiding the ship,
overseeing management and making all of the big decisions.
And when the company's in the black at the end of the year, then
we all have a stake in that.
Every employee of Maximum Fun who wants to join this co-op will own the company together.
We got called in for this big meeting in person, sort of during the pandemic. And once Jesse got up to talk, I went, oh, Jesse's going to sell the company. And I wasn't wrong, but I was a little bit wrong. I thought he was going to sell it to some big network, some conglomerate, but that is not what he wanted to do. He wanted to have the company become a co-op.
I know that Jesse could have, if he'd wanted to. He could have sold us to, Sirius or iHeartMedia, or I don't know if I'm supposed to be naming names or not, but
I've worked for enormous media conglomerates and just been an invisible cog in the system. And this is the complete opposite of that.
A lot of companies in the podcast industry try to maximize profits or get the biggest celebrities or do what's going to make them the most money. And Maximum Fun, I think, has always tried to do what feels right.
I know that what I do here matters to me, to my coworkers, and to the people who enjoy what I do.
I think.
So just to, get your thoughts about this, like, I'm not sure if you ever had gotten this story across before, but what are your thoughts about that?
So not this particular story, but I'm happy to see that. When I wrote my my piece on work clause, which was actually the article right after our first live together, that was my next article. The only thing negative one could say about it is the fact that the person that could be the owner or the CEO, they don't make as much money as you can as the singular owner. Even if the original owner didn't want any part of the company afterwards, like the employees can buy it off of them. There's nothing a business, an entrepreneur loses by going the route of trying to democratize their workspace. This is like taking a union and going the extra step, cutting out a middleman to discuss the needs of the worker to the owners. When the workers are the owners, then who needs a union? Like, who needs union reps? Who needs any of that type of stuff? And the decisions that are going to be made there will be it's still for the shareholders, but in this case, the shareholders are the people. And even if some people that were working in the co-op, if they want to venture off and start their own thing, then they're given the tools of the ownership class by being a part of an executive board, or at least involvement in that type of executive decision making for business, that they could branch off, start their own worker co-op, and then build community with the co-op that they made, that they left. There's, to me, a worker co-op is an obvious transition from if we were to do a mass capitalism to socialism like thing like that. I think a worker co-op is that sort of just do that. I mean, it's not going to fix every single problem, of course, but I genuinely, every business-minded person I meet or that I know, I tell them, hey, you're starting up, like, consider making your company a worker co-op. Or if they already made it pretty far, like, maybe you should consider converting your company into a worker co-op. Like, nobody loses in this case. So I don't. The only reason why they don't exist everywhere is because of greed, and that's it.
Yep. Thank you so very much for that. Let's finish up this video because I like this. I like this a lot.
I do.
I think the nature of cooperatives is that they are sustainable because the people for whom the existence of the company matters the most are the ones making all of the key decisions.
We care more. We're all part of it. We have all got skin in the game.
If I do good work and my colleagues do good work, it will all benefit us directly.
And like, let me just say, this is a pretty big deal. There aren't any other podcast companies that we know of out there working this way. There's barely any media companies out there working this way. We're really proud of this.
I've worked in business a long time, and I've also tried to figure out how to work in business and feel good about myself. And I feel so great about this.
And you know what? Honestly, frankly, we couldn't have done it without you.
I'm really excited about this, and I hope you are too.
If you think this is as cool as I do, I hope you'll do what you can to back us up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for making it possible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much.
Never happen at Sirius.
That's true. It wouldn't happen as serious.
Nope.
But that's one of the things I also wanted to. And another benefit to having a worker cooperative is when you own something, you're more likely to take better care of it, which means that you're incorporating the entrepreneurial spirit in all the workers because they all own. So the waste actually is more likely to go down. So we're not, as likely to, waste, things, as far as operational costs because we realize that's our money. But then on top of it, you are more likely to also want to incorporate better customer service because if you own it, you want to have the best customer service possible.
Yep.
Right. And then you also are concerned with the quality of the service as well, the goods and services. Like for instance, one of the most famous worker co-ops is actually Land O'Lakes. How they make butter, they make cream, things like that. Land O'Lakes is actually a worker co-op. Same thing with Ocean Spray. Ocean Spray is literally one of the largest worker co-ops in the United States. And so when it comes to certain companies, their quality, if their quality a lot of times is top notch, like imagine just in your mind's eye, if Apple was a co-op. Holy crap. You think
I
people
think that'll be a good world.
Now? Shoot.
Imagine how valuable it'll still be. It'll still be very valuable.
Yeah.
I guess my only thing with with certain co-ops is so I didn't know Ocean Spray was a worker co-op, but I do remember seeing Ocean Spray as one of the on the boycott list in regards to connections with Israel. So I guess there's still that aspect of owning a company, but it's just all about being aware They probably could have changed. I just remember seeing their name on a list, and I was like, dang. And now to hear that they're a worker co-op, it's a little confusing, but it's, you know.
Yeah. I didn't know. I don't know about it being Israeli affiliated. In fact, let me share this really quick because I just want to make sure that I'm accurate on this. So this is at their own website. It says, who owns Ocean Spray? It says, many people ask who owns Ocean Spray. The answer are 700 farmer families. Ocean Spray is an agricultural cooperative, which means our farmers own and collectively share ownership. The cooperative turns their crops into products consumers really love and gets those products onto store shelves. And so they talk about how 100% of their profits go to the farmers. They talk about what a cooperative is. Now, my question is, are some of those farms in Israel? Because if so, then that would make me pause. But
it would mean I've seen a lot of lists, so I could very well be mistaken. I can admit that. It's just I guess that's something to keep in mind. That the bigger picture of going this route is to also include, an anti-imperialist side to it. Because even if a company could be a socialist paradise in it, very fully democratized workplace, but if they still rely and participate in imperialism, then that sort of negates the good that comes from how they operate.
Yeah, that's also very true. I think that there has to be some knowledge, some wherewithal about some of the things that you do behind the scenes so that you are more above board. Granted, that is kind of more difficult to do, especially in capitalism. There really is no ethical consumption, but you can be as ethical as you possibly can with the circumstances that allow, I would say.
Right. Yeah.
So, like, for instance, there are certain companies where you can try to stay away from, but ultimately, like, for instance, you may be working for a company that, I don't know, that cooks, and then you're using a stove, but the stove that you use, the pilot light, was built by a company that, is not very ethical, and it's like, how do you gauge that? So it's kind of difficult in that way. But at the same time, I think as long as you're doing what's ethical and you try to stay more in line with the more ethical companies, I think that's good. But you're not going to hit every time, I don't think. It's just like,
that's understandable. This is an actual nuanced thing, not like how people trying to tell us certain things are more nuanced than they're not.
Yeah, definitely. So another thing I wanted to talk about is now, if you guys remember a few months back, I had on Nelson Betancourt to talk about public banks. One of the things that we were talking about was making a public bank here in Orange County, Florida. That was a really great conversation. In fact, I brought Nelson back on to talk about the updates regarding public banks. And one of the things that was shared with me, shout out to you, Roger Meadows, if you're watching, that was shared with me was from the National Public Banking Coalition. I'm going to share this because I saw this and I was just like, whoa, this actually gives a great breakdown of how public banks operate and the comparison to corporate banks and things like that. And also, I'll share this with you as well. I can put this in the private chat so you can have this link as well, Katie. So this actually shows. So if you look at here, it has depositories and then non-depositories. And then it shows ownership, chartered, leverage, profits, loan, purpose. So it talks about that. But then if you scroll down, so it says public bank is in the green, right? Then you have a benefit bank corp, which is in the blue. Then credit unions, which a lot of people were asking about, local community banks, and then big global banks, right? So the big global banks would be like Wells Fargo, PNC Bank, JP Morgan, Citibank, Regions, things like that, right? Then you have your more mom and pop banks that are local community banks. You have your credit unions. You have ones like Fairwinds. One of the most famous ones is Navy Federal, which I am boycotting because they don't like black people. And then you have benefit bank corporations, which I'm not too familiar with, but then you have public banks. And what this actually shows is that public banks, from what this says public banks are owned by the public through a government entity such as a state, city, region, nation, or tribe. And then it talks about it holds bank charter. Depository says public banks are depository banks, which means that they can accept deposits of the government entity that created them. This is a key power of a chartered bank and a key distinction between public banks and non-banks. The public bank charter would define whether the depositors, such as the general public, can deposit money or securities in the bank. And then so it talks about profit. And so with the transparency, it says with public banks, now how the bank's money is being used and invested is a matter of public record. So just like how you can go into a state or city's website and look at things that were spoken about or talked about at the meeting between the city managers and the mayor and the commissioners. Well, the same thing you can see as far as a public bank. You can see all these things that were talked about within a public bank. It says the Public Bank of North Dakota has helped North Dakota consistently rank number 2 in Truth in Accounting annual assessment of state financial conditions, receiving its 9th A grade in 2023. And if you want to interject anytime, Katie, please feel free.
Yeah. I feel the same way about public banks as I do about worker co-ops. They are there's no negative inside of these. The only negative would be to someone that wants to profit off of these things. And since I don't care for those people, I see nothing but good things from public banks. The only setback for here in Florida specifically are just a couple of bank restrictions by law, like the fact that all banks in Florida have to be insured by the
FDIC.
Yeah, the FDIC, and the public banks don't require that. They don't require insurance because in their functionality that's not needed. And then the other problem is who the bank would fall under control. It'll fall under partisan control here in Florida based off of I think that it has something to do with like the board of electors or something like that. But essentially, they will be partisan owned and not independent of a party if we were to get past the FDIC requirement and make a public bank. So those two setbacks, I think they can be mitigated by citizen ballot initiative. Like they very well, someone could petition, get it created, put it on a ballot, and then have people vote. And then if that passes, that opens up the lane, or at least it eliminates a couple of restrictions to the development of the public bank, and then we could actually get that ball rolling. I've been trying to follow the meetings and discussions. I still think the last meeting was done on like the 4th of December, and I'm not sure if they started another one or when they'll have their next meeting. But hopefully it's after discovering those barriers, that doesn't stop it doesn't stop Mr. Betancourt from pushing to still get that done.
Yeah, definitely. So that is that I think that if and one of the things I want to encourage people is that number one, citizen ballot initiatives are definitely a way to circumvent political parties. So, and public banks are great for, especially when it comes to infrastructure and creating jobs, as well as it can even help mitigate taxation, so that a lot of times people talk about how their taxes are going up and things like that, which affect indirectly the working class a lot. This could help mitigate that so that taxes will not go up, but we can do a lot more infrastructure projects, will also help breed jobs, and not just jobs, but more good paying jobs, especially. So this is something that I think that I would like to encourage people to do, is to look into public banking, whether it's city, municipally, or statewide, countywide. And then you guys can look into doing that as well. That was a good news story that I actually had gotten from having Nelson Betancourt on, and I absolutely loved having him on, and I'm going to try to have him on early within 2024 to talk about some updates that he may have. So we're going to be getting into that. So another story that I wanted to talk about, and this one, let me share. I shared this story, and when this happened, I was like, baby, this is golden. All right, so you're probably going to recognize this story. We're going to take some time and go back in time. All right. Look at me looking all crazy. Anywho, let's show. I share my screen and we talk about this story. Thank you so much for that. You whet everybody's appetite with that one. Let's get into this. So let's get into this gentleman's statement. He is the new president of Burkina Faso. So let's take a look at what he says, and I'll pause to read so that if you're listening on the podcast, then you guys can know exactly what's being said. Said Africa is a continent. And how is it that our heads of state are crossing the world to beg? These are questions that we ask ourselves, and now we have no answer to so far. We have the opportunity to forge new relations. I hope that these relations be the best to give a people future to our people, to give a better future to our peoples. As for Burkina Faso, today we have been confronted for more than 8 years with the most barbaric, most violent form of neocolonialism, imperialism. Slavery still has to impose on us. Sounds kind of like us, Delilah.
Oh no.
So that happened. It was a coup that happened earlier this year where you had Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso that took over the country and kicked France out. I don't know about you, but I was just like, what was your thoughts?
I was very happy when I heard that, and even more happy to learn that similar to them, Mali and Niger had the same thing going on, where it's finally the African continent, or at least these African leaders finally getting some get back against the colonizers of their land. And I hope to see that like trickle through the rest of the continent. I mean, we saw what happened with the Congo, and even Ghana under Kwame Nkrumah, of how they were just, as soon as some sort of strong independent leadership was there, there's the colonizing powers ready to take them out. Thomas Sankara too. I'm happy to see this revitalization of African leaders actually wanting genuine independence from the colonizing powers, and I hope this time the continent is successful in getting those folks out.
So, yeah, that was an amazing story out of Africa, and there have actually been attempted coups against Ibrahim Traore since then, but they've been failed. And so I'm hoping that he continues the trend of decolonizing Burkina Faso, especially in following the tradition that Thomas Sankara started, and continuously, and I hope he also follows a tradition of what people like Muammar Gaddafi did with Libya. But at the same time, I would like to see it transition to a civilian democratic government too.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That's the only thing I would like to see that handed over. So we'll see, in the next, I say in the next 6 to 9 months, see if that happens. But they're seriously trying to overthrow him to basically put in a Western puppet, from what it looks like to me.
And that's so disgusting. I'm not gonna say the word on your live, but those types of folks that remind me of a certain animal that likes to dig in garbage. Those are my least favorite people in the world.
Yeah, they make that voice, that sound. But let's go to the next one story that I would like to touch on. Speaking of imperialism, man, NATO had their grubby little hands all over this thing, and a lot of people have been talking about this lately. Let's talk about Ukraine. So this was a story that came out in February. It says hundreds gathered in Washington, D.C. to protest against Russia's invasion of Ukraine and to demand further aid from U.S. on 1-year anniversary of the war. It's funny how they can come together for Ukraine, but they can't come. But a lot of these same people didn't come together for Palestine. But it's whatever. Let's go into this.
I'm seeing something very common amongst this crowd.
And America strengthening and everything possible to uphold the fundamental principle. 365 days of sorrow, losses, tragedies, and destruction. But we are not talking about that today. We are talking about 365 days of heroic, almost impossible fight. Ukrainians put defending our homes, loved ones.
I find it funny. Hold up, let's go back to this. This is hilarious. This is hilarious. The same. Hang on. Let me put myself on full screen for a second. Hang on. Hold up. Let me. Sorry. Hang on. Get off me. The same people that will praise somebody like Stefan Bandera, where they will hold White Lives Matter marches in Ukraine. And then you guys are like, oh, he's just like Hitler. You guys literally praised Hitler in that country. Y'all praised Stefan Bandera. And then you guys are like, oh, well, he's just like Hitler. Then you guys should be happy, shouldn't you? I'm sorry, what? What about those monuments to Seven Bandera? Like what? Katie, please. Make sense. Please, make sense.
I can't make sense of it. The irony of it isn't even funny. It's depressing to see. And that type of thinking it's beneficial. The fact that all those people are literally supporting one of two nations that would not condemn Nazism and utilizing or invoking Hitler as like an enemy, you can't. That type of cognitive dissonance is it's bred, and it's ain't much else I can really say about it. It boggles my mind how people could just be this loud and wrong and feel no shame.
Yeah. And my thing is like, did you guys not forget that people like Victoria Nuland and people like the late John McCain went to Ukraine to help facilitate a coup against their leader, right? I think his name was Decolonization. And they literally had a coup in Ukraine that led to a more right-wing regime. This right-wing regime facilitated a murder, a massacre of 14,000 ethnic Russians in eastern Ukraine. And then when the ethnic speaking Russians went to Putin that were like, look, we need you to intervene because they're literally killing us. Then Putin was like, well, let's let the Minsk Accords take. Sorry, I live in the hood and the fireworks are already going off.
It was going off out here too. You're all good.
But, you know, he was trying to let that take, into effect. And so 14,000 people murdered in the Donbass. And yet people forget all about that. And Putin held back. He was like, I am not going to do this. But guess what? NATO kept going, inching closer and closer and closer eastward. And to the point now where they literally got guns drawn and pointed at Moscow. So then Putin was like, all right, that's it. I'm done. And he's like, let's do this denazification in Ukraine, which they have been doing effectively. The war is over. The war is over. Ukraine lost. Putin won. And guess what?
It was all for nothing. This was a big waste of money and a huge waste of lives. It's like we don't learn. We don't learn, and we get rewarded for not learning. So, place we live in.
And so that's the thing. Let me go. Oh gosh, let me go back to this. Jeez Louise.
Ukrainians put defending our homes, loved ones, our independence, our dignity, our sovereignty, freedom, and democracy.
Russia is a terrorist
What
state.
democracy?
Russia is a terrorist state.
By the way, these marches have not been that big in comparison to the ones for Palestine. And yet they're getting billions and billions of dollars, but Palestine ain't getting nothing. Weird, right?
Yeah, weird for a normal person.
Goodness gracious. Could it be the hair and skin and eye color? So,
I think it plays a part in it. Huge part, actually.
I think that people were desperate and shocked and baffled. And this year it's different. This year we have hope, and we are certain that Ukraine will win, because we can see that Ukraine is winning already with the use of all the support from the US and Europe.
I just want to say,
Russia! Stop raping Ukrainians! Stop killing Ukrainian children!
Wait, what is? Does that sound familiar?
It sounds very familiar. Very familiar.
Very.
But I was very. But I was going to say that this is decades of the U.S. winning its propaganda war against the Soviet Union, and then later to Russia, of just people just accept the idea that Vladimir Putin is an evil guy because Russia is evil, because the Soviet Union was evil, and that's just where people's brains were brought to. The only way this comes about is just from a decade cycle of breeding ignorance and fear mongering against communism at the end of the day. So like I said, man, this stuff will be promoted. This stuff is encouraged. Learning the opposite and questioning this will always be demonized. That's why people accept that's why people could sit here and be all defend Ukraine and at the same time be all, oh, we stand with Israel for doing the exact same thing to another group of people that we're saying is being done to us by Russia. And like I said, it's idiocy at the end of the day.
Yep. And never mind the fact that what's going on in Russia was different than what's going on in Israel, because Israel is literally going after people who are indigenous to the land, versus Putin was actually requested by ethnic Russians in order to intervene because they were literally killing them, the Eastern Ukrainians in the Donbass. So, you know, that's one of the things that makes it starkly different. You know, as far as when you actually look at what's going on the ground. And so, yeah, so that's one of the stories that actually was happening. And now we're seeing that we're going into 2024 and people are going to be looking at that blue and yellow flag and go, what country is that?
I don't know. Luckily, since it only has two colors, maybe it's not too complicated for the average American to remember, but I don't know.
Probably not. But we're going to go to our next story that I wanted to talk about as well. This one was a doozy, and I saw this. I was just like, oh, Lord, no. While we're talking about that black and white animal that makes the sound, we're going to talk about one of the big ones. His name is Clarence Thomas. We're going to talk about Clarence Thomas. Let's talk about this. This came out in ProPublica earlier this year. I was just like, what? So, this was a big story. It says, for over 20 years, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas has been treated to luxury vacations by billionaire Republican donor Harlan Crow. Do you remember this story?
I do remember this story.
Look, I didn't know what in the hell the Adrian Acts were until I read this story. That's how poor I am. So this says he goes on cruises in far-flung locales on Crow's yacht. Look at that. Look at that thing. You can get more than catfish on that. Then
private jet too, of course.
You get private jet flights. What? And then keeps company with Crow's powerful friends at the billionaire's private resort. Not his house, his resort. Who do you know has their own resort?
If I knew them, I would not be on this live right now.
Like, Screw you and your cheap ass JB. I'm going to this private resort. I'm gonna be sipping on mimosas and having some fine ass lady feeding me grapes while I'm on a chaise lounge, not a couch, a chaise lounge.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's just
God.
the obscene, like this is obscene amounts of displays of wealth here. Like it's actually gross that an individual could have all this at their disposal.
Mm-hmm.
And then is there no sort of legal breach of, I don't know, I forget the thing that I'm trying to say, but how is it that Supreme Court justice is allowed to participate in all these it said for 20 years? Like that's like 2 decades. That's almost as old. That's almost as old as me. And he was able to do all of that while serving on the highest on the highest court of the land. Like were any laws actually broken there, or are people trying to actually maybe set a precedent with Thomas? That part I don't know about the story.
Well, as far as the ethics are concerned, it doesn't look good. I'll just put it that way. Let's continue. It says the extent of Crow's largesse has never been revealed until now. And so let me go down here. So it says these trips appeared nowhere on Thomas's financial disclosures. His failure to report the flights appears to violate a law passed after Watergate that requires justices, judges, members of Congress, and federal officials to disclose most gifts, 2 ethics law experts said. He also should have disclosed his trips on the yacht, these experts said. Thomas did not respond to a detailed list of questions. Now, it says in a statement, Crow acknowledged that he'd extend hospitality to the Thomases over the years, but said that Thomases never asked for any of it, and it was no different from the hospitality we have extended to our many other dear friends. But the thing is, that's not the point. The point is that you were doing this and you have a vested interest in Thomas voting or ruling a certain way that actually benefits people like Harlan Crow financially.
Right.
So ultimately, and then I want people to realize this. The Supreme Court is a governing body of unelected people who serve lifetime appointments without ever really having to be voted out. But that being said, essentially the way the Supreme Court is set up is undemocratic.
Yeah.
So then you have billionaires like Harlan Crow that are also schmoozing people like Clarence Thomas. And then now you see, well, he is ruling in ways that benefit Harlan Crow instead of actually ruling in ways that actually benefit the people.
Mm-hmm.
So when I look at stories like this, it just reminds me how this system needs to be changed from the ground up. And people will say, well, the legal system works. No, it doesn't. Not here. If it doesn't work in the highest court of the land, it doesn't work in the lower ones either. It may work some of the time.
Mm-hmm.
But what's going on with this, it feels like that's the rule more than the exception.
Yeah. like I said, like personally, there you have to actively want to be propagandized at this point for you to still believe there's a sense of balance and fairness in our system. The fact that the court system was automatically designed to be undemocratic is crazy. The fact people have gone this long without questioning why we don't elect our Supreme Court justices the same way we can elect our circuit judges. The fact that that seat is a lifetime seat. It took forever for people to start really questioning term limits for Congress. Like I agree with you. There needs to be a complete demolition and reconstruction of the system, and taking away appointed lifetime positions, I think should be like the number one thing to not include in this new reconstruction.
Yeah. So this is the issue within the system. It is the corruption that embodies the system, and it's baked into the cake of the system, which is something I think that we need to completely shift and change within our country as well. So, man, they are really going on out there. So I want to go to this next story. We're going to be talking about workers now. So if you remember the WGA strikes, the Writers Guild of America strikes.
Mm-hmm.
So this is also what happened. And so a lot of people, what happened here? Let me refresh. Okay.
Outside Warner Brothers, Paramount, Sony, Netflix, and the other Hollywood studios, and on the streets of Manhattan, striking writers united behind a single message.
Fair pay, fair compensation for our creative work.
Stars like Rob Lowe, whose son is a writer, standing up in solidarity.
We're only as good as the writing we get.
Overnight, the late night talk shows went into reruns. Hosts like Stephen Colbert throwing their support behind union writers.
These are our writers, and I'll stick myself in there because I'm WGA too, and they're so important to our show.
SNL canceling Pete Davidson's hosting debut this weekend. The show in repeats until further notice. Daytime soap operas will likely follow. And if the strike stretches on, there could be an impact on fall shows. Writers like Maisie Culver say they're striking to make sure that young writers have the opportunity to make a living doing what they love.
I do believe that this is an existential fight for the future viability of writing even being a career.
The way that streaming companies pay their talent is very much different than the way the old school television companies paid. And the writers have sort of been left behind, in their words, on the streaming revolution.
They want to turn us into gig workers. They want to remove all of the gains that our union has fought for decades.
The alliance.
But KD, capitalism breeds innovation, right?
That's what the government tells me, and I believe everything the government tells me.
Right? It's like, but we can actually make better money, and you can command your own hours, and you have more freedom. Freedom, right?
This is like capitalism. I feel like is the antithesis to freedom. You have to force a capitalist to pay somebody a fair wage. That's something that if it was left up to the freedom, whole laissez-faire capitalism, and there was no restriction whatsoever, like that capitalist is not going to pay that person. They would happily have slave labor if that's the case. Like if they could. I personally think capitalism is just flat out evil. And so when I talk to my peers about it, and they're like so, I'm like, I don't understand how you're so unless you think you're gonna be in that class. Which if you are, then I mean, I'm You know, I'm not a slave owner. You can do what you want. But you know, that to me, there's nothing good that comes from it. Nothing good. It will breed selfishness, individuality, and prioritizing money over the people, even the people that help you make that money.
Absolutely. And one of the things I think is important is that we realize that ultimately, even though capitalism did uplift people out of poverty from the transition from feudalism, it has outlived its usefulness. So therefore, there was no economic upward mobility under feudalism. There was economic upward mobility under capitalism, but it's only for a small few. Now it's time to go to the next phase and have upward mobility for all, which is beyond the realms of capitalism, because capitalism can now facilitate upward mobility for all, because it needs to have a small regime of people at the top, and it just leaves everybody else by the wayside. So that's one of the things I think is important. Let me continue this video so we can continue to get the story again.
Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, representing studios including Comcast, which owns NBC Universal, says its proposal includes generous increases in compensation, writing the primary sticking points are mandatory staffing and duration of employment for writers.
What would Hollywood be without writers like you?
I mean, you're about to find out. Because we're not working. We've withdrawn our labor, and we will not be working until we get a fair deal that we deserve.
We also talked to several members of SAG-AFTRA, the actors union. They were there shoulder to shoulder marching with the writers on the picket lines. They say this is important for all the guilds, for the entire creative community to stand together right now. The Actors and the Directors Guild contracts, they expire in June. Those negotiations are about to begin, and many of these same issues will be in play. Craig?
All right, Kaylee Hartung. Kaylee.
So that was an interesting story that happened. And, you know, they, of course, reached an agreement. But at the same time, if we're going to talk about writers, can we talk about the music writers as well and how they're being treated? Can we talk about the ones that actually do the writing for video games and video game developers and how they have to do this crunch when it comes close to the release date for these video games?
That's why I question the genuineness of some of the more wealthier representatives in these guild protests, the writers and the actors. It's sort of like I feel like they view it as fad jumping. Like it's not harmful to your brand to be out there in solidarity with people who write the shows that you get paid very well in. So, like with Stephen Colbert said, "Oh yeah, these are our writers. I stand with this." Like, yeah, I could. You could spare me with that. I want to see you keep that energy for, like how you said, the video game developers, the dance for backup dancers. Like, there's way more than just the Writers Guild and the SAG that you can stand in solidarity with. But because, I mean, those two aren't hurtful to your brand, yeah, sure, go like balls to the wall, be all for this these strikes. But most don't keep that same energy in anything else.
Absolutely. And now I want to shift focus to another good news story. This story, when I found this out, man, I was so happy. I was happy because I didn't have this growing up, but I am so glad that kids this year have this now growing up. So let me share my screen with this. This is a positive story that came out of this year. I just love this. So this is out of the Orlando Sentinel. This happened over the summer. And I hope they do this in your county. Orange County schools to offer free meals for all students 2023 to 2024 school year. So,
shout out to the Black Panthers.
Yep. Says all students can eat free breakfast and lunch at all Orange County public schools when classes resume in August. A move experts say can improve academics, attendance, and cafeteria finances. Orange County Public Schools offered the free meals to everyone at 75% of its schools last year, but Central Florida's largest school district will expand that to all campuses for the 23-24 school year. The Lake County School District made the same meals for all move several years ago. For years, students from low-income families, like myself, under the federal school lunch program, eat free or reduced price school meals whenever they attended school. In the spring, 69% of OCPS students qualified for the program. I want to read this again. In the spring, 69% of Orange County Public School students qualified for the free or reduced lunch program. This tells me one thing. Families are suffering immensely in this country. If almost 70% of all the families qualified for free or reduced lunch, this tells me that ultimately we are in late stage capitalism. The workers are being shafted even worse than they ever have before. And I'm not sure if you remember, but I talked about how there is the ratio in races for Orange County is kind of different because only half of our county is white. The rest of our county is Black, Latino, and Asian. So we have a massive amount of people of color. So half really down the middle. And even still, like for instance, the school area that I live in is predominantly Black and Latino. And so especially, and I'm in a lower working class, poorer area. So most of the students get free or reduced lunch at, these schools, whether it be, Palmetto Elementary, it could be Westridge Middle, or it could be Jones High School, it could be Oak Ridge High School. Whether these schools within the area, most of the kids qualify for free or reduced lunch. So that just tells you everything you need to know about the system. Your thoughts?
I don't know, JB. I hear you, but GDP is doing pretty good. The stocks are great. If you haven't heard, I feel like you're not aware of how good the economy is, and you just it's your fault.
I didn't know. Stocks are up. Oh, great.
No, but no, that's actually insane. That like almost 70% of people already qualified for that program. It's like, why you might as well just made it free for everyone at that point. And this is not going. I promise you, this is not going to reduce like the quality of lunch. How people seem to believe that if you give everybody something, you're going to get a crap product, or you can't feed everybody. Those are two lies that people will try to tell you. But the fact that a kid could possibly go to school and leave school hungry, like that shouldn't be allowed. I'm glad that applies to the whole county, and it makes sense. And hopefully it proves to people a little microcosm of a universal program that it benefits everyone there. It's a net positive. It's another one of those things where you don't lose something by giving more people something. So Yeah.
Sorry, I had to mute myself because the bombs are bursting in the air out there.
Mhm.
You would think it's a whole new American Revolution that's going on outside, but one of the things that I think that's important is that one of the things we talk about a lot is universal programs, and universal programs like this actually do help and keeps from kids from going to school hungry. So this was a great news story that I found to be just a beautiful. I hope that this becomes permanent, because it needs to be permanent, because I remember having to go to school and I forgot to give my mom the paper for free of reduced lunch. And then the time to get free lunch ran out. And so instead of getting the lunch that all the other students got, I got a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Insane.
And I had to sit there with a completely different lunch than everybody else. And it was like, well, no, you don't have the money to pay, so you don't get the lunch that everybody else gets.
Sorry, child, you don't get this food. You got to get something else. That's so sick.
Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed, but I've been sort of in a constant state of like rage in just how awful and careless we kind of let our system become. It's gross.
Yep, definitely. And so that was one good news story that came out of this year that I would like to point to. Another story that had the underpinnings of something good happening, but I still really haven't heard anything good out of it yet. But this is for people who are like me. This was an interesting story. Of course, you were straight, so you don't really know. Have you ever heard of the app called Grindr?
Oh yeah, I've heard of the app.
Okay, all right. So that's because people like me probably have told you about it. But anyways, so it says Grindr unlawfully purged staff at LGBTQ dating app, union says. So Grindr is pretty much a dating / hookup app that a lot of LGBTQ people use. They tried to unionize, and so it says Grindr United, the union representing workers at the LGBTQ dating app, filed an unfair labor practice charge against the company on Wednesday after over 80 workers were forced to resign due to a return to office policy that gave them 2 weeks to decide whether to move across the country or lose their jobs, according to the press release. It says the charge alleges that this policy was retaliatory against unionizing workers and that the company also unlawfully, silenced workers who were asking questions about it. So the crazy part is what was happening here was the people who worked at Grindr basically decided to unionize because they were like, we're sick and tired of this. We also want to have worker protections. But the CEO was like, no, you guys don't get these protections. And so one of the things I wanted to bring out is that just because a CEO has the same identity as somebody like myself doesn't mean they're devoid of exploitation.
Mm-hmm.
So just like you can have exploitation with Black billionaires, you can have exploitation with queer billionaires, you can have exploitation with people who are in political office that hold these different identities. So it's not just about the representation as far as their identity, but it's also talks about the representation of them economically and as far as class.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, class is linked to identity, but at the same time, there are also white people who are poor who also suffer from things as well. So I think it's important that we recognize that there are people who can also turn their back on those of us who are marginalized too. So I think that's important. But this was sad because the thing is that I was happy that Grindr was actually unionizing, but then at the same time, you know, the people at the top, it's about profit only. So that's what happened with them. You give your thoughts on that.
Yeah. I'll say that this I think there's a bad faith conflation between the acts of these of like, oh, hey, this is a site for gay people. Look at all this cool stuff we're doing for gay people. But as a capitalist, you are an exploiter. I think there are bad faith conflations between that, which I call the liberal exploitation of identity politics, and then the actual still systemic issues that marginalized groups face. And when this conversation of trying to separate class from identity comes into play, I feel like there isn't a good faith approach to that discussion. It's just straight up, oh, we don't care about identity politics over here. It's class all the way. And it's like, but class and identity, like you said, are inherent. Even if we can look at this rich CEO who might be a part of the LGBT community, that is a part of the LGBT community, and he gets to be a billionaire capitalist, he's still exploiting what you can't assume. I'm not going to assume everybody that works, you know, for Grindr is a part of that community, but I would assume that a good chunk of them are, and they're being exploited. Both their identity and their labor is being exploited. So you can't have this conversation of classism is the only thing that's important, and then identity is something that needs to be left behind. You have to be able to talk and include both of these things, because at the end of the day, that's the identity will play that part in adding more barriers, adding it's just more you have to go through on top of being exploited just for your class. So yeah, there's no surprise that this person is an exploiter, but the people that they are exploiting, their identity is just as important as their class.
Yep, absolutely. So that happened earlier this year. I had, you know, some high hopes, but, you know, Grindr, just like many other companies, like the way they are, they do not like their workers. So yep, that was one. There is another story that came out. I'm going to shift to another story that happened. Hang on, let me take that down and I'll take this down. Let me get to this next story here. Actually, you know what? Yeah, let me get to this next story.
So I wanted to give you a quick heads up. I'll probably have to leave in like 20 minutes or so. So just, just let you know. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things, and I'll go to the next story after this, but one of the things while I have you here, I wanted to bring up was this story about us, essentially. So this story was one of the highlights of my year, was when I actually got to meet you guys, and we formed the Orlando Mutual Aid chapter. And one of the highlights that I really loved was when we actually did our mutual aid event. And here is me sharing it on RBN. Rome was joining me that we got to share. And let's just, look just a minute or two. All right, so now just letting you guys know, the whole reason why I had the camera on me most of the time was because you know how some people, you know, they'll videotape.
You just gotta respect their wishes, and you know,
will ticket you or maybe even arrest you for giving away food in downtown Orlando.
what you do with that is you.
Oh, he was impressed, and he was like, "Well, what organization you with?" I'm like, "We're with Revolutionary Blackout Network." And he's like, I'm gonna look for you. I'm gonna search you out. So I gave him my contact info so that, you know, if he wants to get in touch with me. But they were just, you know, telling us God bless you, things like that. You know, it was beautiful how they actually were reacting to it. But let me just go right here. Okay. Here we go. Here is the supplies for. Oh, let's open this up just so that everybody can see. And we're not about that tiny little. We're not about that tiny little toothpaste.
Thank
we
you,
actually
man.
have
I
a
hate
full one
niggas
for
with them
everybody.
tiny toothpastes,
So that's what we're
dog.
doing. So, how did you feel about that day, Katie?
That was a great day. Other than the fact that we couldn't help everybody and we couldn't provide food, that was a major highlight of the year for me too. Even though we don't do it for us, you know, it feels great to be able to serve in that capacity. And yeah, I look forward to our next one.
Yeah. So while I have you all here, just let you guys know, we're also raising funds for that. We're doing Orlando Mutual Aid. If you guys would like to, you guys can go to $Orlando RBN on Cash App to donate. We're trying to raise primarily for grocery gift cards and toiletries. So if you guys would like to, you can do that. And then I will also put in the link to the Cash App in the chat so that you guys can also donate to that as well. And it's very much appreciated because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to basically do the same thing again. So we're going to be doing that. But I also want to share this as well. I did share this when you were here last time, but we can just talk about it just a little bit. And this was also a really great day because we really shared what we wanted to do and what we're trying to do as far as the ultimate goal of helping out people as much as we possibly can. Hey everybody, we are Orlando RBN Mutual Aid. We're doing actions here in Orlando. So there's me, KD, as well as Sabiha, and we had Jen who was holding the camera, and so it was just a beautiful day to be able to do that and to try to do what we can for, you know, mutual aid, because ultimately it's not about just talking about the problems, because a lot of us know what the problems are, but I think it's important also to discuss solutions as well as calling people to action to do solution oriented work.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, and that was one of the highlights. And the thing is that one of the things I appreciate is that I not only were able to fulfill one of the things that I wanted to do, which was do more work on the ground, but I also got friends and a tribe as well that I'm able to call, you know, my friends, so that we actually go together and help people out on the ground as well. So I just want to say from the bottom of my heart that I appreciate meeting you and Sabiha on that day, because it actually helped me to become a better person. It actually helped me grow. And I just want to thank you guys for that.
Yeah, I could say the same to you. Y'all the reason why I'm now in the independent media sphere myself. When we got all this anger against this power, and we have the actions that we do, but I just felt like there's something more that I could have contributed. And after meeting you, like you said, the passion became a purpose. So I have infinite amount of gratitude to you for moving forward with starting the chapter, and so much gratefulness to meeting Sabiha as well. Yeah, you guys are awesome. It's like this.
Feelings mutual, bro. Feelings mutual. So I would like to go. I just wanted to make sure I got that while you're still here, because I'm just like, I'm not going to talk about this while while he's gone. So another story that I also wanted to talk about, and this is another positive story that I wanted to bring up, is you aware of Brics, right?
Brics, yes.
Yes. So Brics basically is a collaboration of states: Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, that a lot of people have been talking about as of recently. And so this was actually talking about how Brics is welcoming new members into this. So it was going to be 11 new members. I think it's going to be 10 now, because Argentina was one of the nations.
Oh, no.
But now since they elected a new president, who I think is an idiot and a fool, he is now saying that he wants to pull out of the Brics deal. So instead of it being 11 new members of Brics that will be initiated tomorrow on the 1st, it will be 10. So, but this actually was a story about Brics actually adding more. So it was Saudi Arabia, Iran, Ethiopia, Egypt, Argentina, United Arab Emirates. Now maybe minus Argentina, but the other nations, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Ethiopia, Egypt, and UAE, are going to be starting tomorrow as members of Brics. And this is going to be changing from a unipolar world to a more of a multipolar world. So I just got to get your view of the developments in Brics as well.
So I don't have the most proficient knowledge of Brics. It's pretty rudimentary, but I am interested to see how the United States will fare with Saudi Arabia being in Brics now. That's what I'm very interested to see. I like the idea of moving away from a unipolar control of oil currency, and if it could get into the hands of multiple people and shared around, I don't see that being a negative thing for like the world. I do see. I feel like the United States would likely suffer quite a bit, which a lot of people are already suffering. So I'm guessing this will include more people, maybe people in my class and above, that will be very, very hurt by it as well. So yeah, I'm very interested to see how this their expansion will impact us. I'm not gonna be mad at it, because we had it coming, but but that's something I will be looking into.
Right. And one of the things that I was thinking about, especially as of recently, is how can this impact Israel, especially because our government gives them to the tune of billions of dollars each year, really just so that they can have free healthcare. They can also essentially have free education, all these different things that we don't even have in this country. And so with Brics and a potential Brics currency happening, this could really drop the value of the dollar dramatically over time, which ultimately will affect the lifeblood of Israel and its continuing genocide of Palestine. So it's like it almost feels like Brics is going to put a tourniquet on around the neck, so to speak, of Israel and then cut it off. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see. I can see Israel kind of shaking in their boots, seeing that, you know, these, especially a lot of these Arab countries, and this is just phase one. This is one thing that the South African president was bringing out. This is just phase one of BRICS. Phase two could add more countries. You can have Eritrea, you can have Ethiopia, you can have a lot more African countries, especially ones that are resource rich.
That's what I'm really looking forward to see if more African countries can get up in there.
Right. Like, for instance, like, part of me is thinking, what about Ibrahim Traore? Like, what if he in Burkina Faso is talked into joining BRICS, and then, you know, their resources that they have in Burkina Faso are now more facilitated towards a BRICS? Or what about Bolivia with their lithium? Because Bolivia has some of the largest concentration of lithium mines in the world. Or, you know, what if somebody came up in Congo that was kind of like a Patrice Lumumba?
Yeah, I see the two-way impact of, if more people joining, how that can benefit them in the long run, and moving for the United States. I mean, it'd be very hard to justify the amount of money that we've been sending to these folks overseas, or just to maintain these bases in these countries that we don't need to be in. It's hard to justify that when we're going to start seeing, when we could see gas prices reach like $10 or something like that, or higher than that, from this. And you know, I like it. The more angry people, the better. That's how I see it.
Absolutely. So thank you so very much for that. So BRICS Plus is basically going to take place tomorrow. So BRICS is going to be adding to be 10 members tomorrow, officially on the 1st. So technically it is the 1st in some parts of the world already. So Happy New Year to all the people who are celebrating Happy New Year. And some people are about to celebrate Happy New Year in about 7 minutes. But one of the things that I also wanted to bring up was, we have to talk about this, is Palestine. And this was one of the biggest things that happened this year, if not the biggest thing that happened this year. You know, on October 7th, the militant group of Hamas has decided to actually go up against the IDF, and they basically humiliated the IDF because they essentially had no idea this was coming. There is some speculation that they did know it was coming. They just didn't really consider it a actual dire threat. But needless to say, it did happen. The 1,200 people that are reportedly that were killed were not all killed by Hamas. It has been later revealed that some of the people who were killed by friendly fire of Israel. Upwards of over a third of the people who were killed by friendly fire of the IDF. So Hamas did not kill all 1,200 people. That being said, there was a subsequent retaliation by Israel, and we are now close to 21,000 people who have been murdered in Gaza because of the retaliation for what happened in Gaza on October 7th. This has been a disproportionate massacre. This has been a disproportionate genocide that has been committed by the IDF. And so it has caused millions of people to uprise and go up against the Zionist entity known as Israel.
Yeah. The biggest thing that actually like shocked me, and I'm surprised it shocked me, was how much lying Israel and subsequently the United States, how much lying they've done, and how dumb these lies are, how lazy this the propaganda is. It's I mean, I'm glad it's terrible because it's easier to fight, but it's amazing how awful it is. The fact that we are now seeing the original number of 1,400 reduced to 1,200. Then you point out that more than half of those were active military forces. You also have the idea that every single adult Israeli citizen that's able to walk freely in Israel was either a member or currently a member of the IDF. So this idea of civilians being targeted is a farce. It's annoying to see them come after lie after lie after lie after lie, just shamelessly, just saying anything. Nothing sticks, but they keep talking and they keep getting boosted, and there's still a war of propaganda when this should have been over after the second week post October 7th.
Yeah, and to add to your point, the 40 beheaded babies that has been debunked, that has not been proven. The claims of sexual assault that have been claimed by the IDF have later been retracted because they could not be proven. So therefore, we know that that's also a farce. And also, the one Israeli baby that was killed has actually been proven to have been killed by friendly fire of Israel. So with that being said, as far as the babies that have been killed, I would say 100% of all the babies that have been killed since October 7th have actually been due to Israel, including an Israeli baby.
And how sad is it that they still have to clutch to one attack that was over 4 months, that's now going to be over 4 months ago? They still hold on to one attack. There's been one incident throughout this entire time where non-combative Israelis have been killed. And since then, almost on a daily basis, you just see more Palestinians killed, just kids, women, men. You have these soldiers out here stripping young men and young boys, humiliating them, taking pictures of them, and people spreading around like, oh yeah, we caught some terrorists. I see a 13-year-old child in there. Like, I never thought I would be this viscerally sick seeing the propaganda that I see from the Israeli half. And I take the advice. I don't engage in it because all that does is help them, and it increases my blood pressure. So, yeah, this has just been devastating. It's devastating just to witness.
Yeah. So one of the things, and I'm about to let you go in a second, but I just wanted to get your thoughts. Where can you let your final thoughts about what you think about 2023, as well as let people know where they can find you as well.
Yeah. So 2023 on just a news level, I would say has been just adding more fury to how I feel about systems, especially our system, how it operates. I'm glad to hear some of the feel good stories because I definitely have not been feeling good from the stories that we have been seeing. On a personal level, I feel like 2023 was a very big growing year for me. A lot of personal things happened before going into 23, and then another major personal hit happened in the middle. But after there, it was just nothing but up. Met y'all, found a sense of purpose, and I'm going into this new year way different, in a way better space than I was going into 2023. And then where you can find me, JB has already dropped the Substack in there, but you could also find me on Twitter at Cam the Rattler. That's just my personal Twitter. I'll try to keep up with it a little bit more now that I have the publication. And I also created an IG page for the publication itself. And if you want to put what it's called, or I could send you the link to the page in the private chat if you want. But there is where I post my completed, well, not completed, I post my articles in there. Instagram only allows like 10 slides. So I put about 9 slides worth of the article in there. So you could kind of get a bit of a sneak peek. You'll get maybe about, depending on how long the article is, around 30 to almost like 70% of the article. So, yeah, there's that. I'm trying to build that as well. And, I just have one goal in regards to the publication, is that I'd like to reach 100 subscribers by the end of 2024. If I can do that, I'll be the happiest guy in the world. Like, super happy.
Awesome.
But yeah, I'm gonna send you the IG page, and yeah, that's all I have had.
All right, thank you so much. I know you said you had to go after 2 hours, but yeah, so thank you so very much for joining. And my guy, just please have a beautiful New Year's Eve. I know you're going to be with family, and it's going to be a great time. Sip some champagne for me.
I'll be sipping a lot, including champagne.
He's going to go for a walk.
Go for a quick little walk.
Go a quick little walk, But thank you so very much, Cam. Love you, brother, and happy New Year.
And it's all love over here, man. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right.
All right. So before we go into some of the final stories that I wanted to discuss as well, let me share this with you as well, so that we can I'm going to share this right quick. Did you guys like the stream? Did you? Go ahead, give it a like, push me out into the algorithm. So thank you so very much for that. And you guys can also go to my own Substack at jaybefaunt.substack.com. All right. Now I just want to give a shout out to all the patrons on Patreon and Coffee. For without you guys, I would not be able to do this work. Yes, this is a job, and you guys make it possible. Thank you so very much. Oh, I just love it. You guys are so lovely. Yes. Thank you very much to everybody for your patrons on Patreon, Coffee, as well as people who send me any type of donations via PayPal. For without you guys, this would not be possible. And yes, I am demonetized for now. So if you guys would like to, you guys can contribute to Patreon and PayPal. So thank you so very much. And I would just like to share with you guys the tiers as well, so that you guys know where you can go in order to become a patron on Patreon or PayPal. Let me make sure I don't want to get caught with my pants down on this. So let me share this. Yes. JB's got it. All right. Man, I'm telling you, these whatchamacallit, these fireworks are really going off. Okay. Can you guys hear them from the background? I don't know. Anywho, thank you so very much to all the people. If you guys would like to, you guys can become JB members. Solidarity. Comrades, Jaybefaunters, super Jaybefaunters, super duper Jaybefaunters, and mega Jaybefaunters. Thank you so very much to all of you. And as well, in addition to and furthermore, I would like to thank new patron, Mandy Zimmerly. Thank you so very much to Mandy for becoming a new patron Thank you so very much. How you doing? Mwah, forehead kisses to you as well. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, I'm also going to be sharing that Instagram link if you guys would like to as well, so that you guys can follow KD on Instagram. There you go. It's in the chat. Now, let's get into some of the other stories that I wanted to show as far as the ending of this year. So we were talking about what was going on in Palestine. This interesting story that came out about Palestine action, where they actually led to the Fisher German ending ties with Elbit Systems. Elbit Systems is a Israeli defense system, and Fisher German is a real estate company that ended their ties with Elbit. It says Palestine Action has received confirmation that property managers for Elbit Systems, Shinstone Drone Factory, Fisher German have cut ties with Israeli arms manufacturer, having sent confirmation to Palestine Action by email yesterday. Fisher German's decision follows on the tail of a similar announcement by Elbit's former recruiters, IO Associates, who dropped Israel's largest weapon maker after a campaign by the Direct Action Network. So this was a huge thing as well, basically telling Elbit Systems to kick rocks. So when this happened, this was also a big deal. And so this was also a positive story as well to show Israel in Elbit Systems where they can shove it, because they continuously are committing atrocities against the Palestinian people, which was a positive story as well. Now, there's another story in relation to this that has actually happened that I talked about a week ago, something like that. So this is another one as well that has happened. In this one I talked about, I was glad to see this happen. Yemen said, hold my beer. They said Yemen will target Israeli vessels despite U.S.-led naval coalition. This dude said it all, baby. So it says, in response to U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin's announcement of the creation of a multinational naval operation to patrol the Red Sea, Yemen's Ansarallah-led government said that they will continue targeting Israeli-linked ships in the strategic shipping corridor. They said, do not pass go, do not collect $200. That's exactly what Yemen said. They said, try me, try me, try me, try me. That's what they did. And they said, call your bluff. The Houthis said, look, they said, no, you ain't going nowhere. And so this forced all the ships that were going towards Israel to bypass going from the Red Sea, and they had to go all the way down and dip underneath Africa just to come all the way back up, which increased their trip by 2 weeks and costing a lot more money just to get goods and services shipped to Israel. So, and this includes BP oil tankers trying to get to Israel. They said, we cannot do this. This is unsustainable. And so then it got to the point where, the prime minister, the UK prime minister is like, yeah, we need to call for a ceasefire because this ain't looking good. And so that's what happened as well. This is also a positive story and a liberation for Palestinian people. And so I'm hoping to see more of this happen in 2024. And I'm hoping to see more direct action happening that actually stops a lot of these ships. I hope to see more direct action as far as boycotts, divestments, and I would like to see sanctions happening against the state of Israel, because they should not be committing these atrocities at all, because this should not be happening, especially against the Palestinian people. So that is also what happened. So outside of that, I also had another story that I wanted to bring up as well. And this one has to do with, before I do that, there was a link that was shared in Rockfin by Hempcar. Hempcar shared this one about Daryl Davis, who actually went out to understand the Ku Klux Klan and how he basically left the Ku Klux Klan. That was from Daryl Davis. That was a story. Daryl Davis is also a black man that went to understand the Ku Klux Klan. I appreciate that link. Of course, there are some people that are able to reach out, which I do think that is valuable. But at the same time, I'm also that person that, make sure to not needlessly risk your life or your safety. So, but I appreciate that, by the way. And so I wanted to share this story as well because I think it's important. And this gentleman, I think I've highlighted him before, but I would like to highlight this again. Let me see. I know that I have it here. Let me see. Okay, yeah, found it. So there's this guy named Michael, and he is a librarian. And somebody said something that really just it was not good. And I want to show some love to this guy because libraries are important, especially to people who are communists like myself. Libraries are important. So this person, whoever their name is, Josh Lacat, said people are getting weirder in response to Michael. Now, I don't think what Michael said or did was weird, but I'll let you guys be the judge of this. And if you guys start getting a little teary-eyed and emotional and start warm feels from this guy, I completely understand. Go ahead, Michael. Let's go.
You have your library card tattooed on you, right? No? Well, you must at least have a library card, yes? Still no? What? You know what? That's okay, because that just means you probably don't know that having fun isn't hard when you've got a library card. There's something at the library for everyone. Library kids, library grown-ups, library people. Of course, we've got books. I'm a book pusher. I'm a library card pusher. We've got books. We've got ebooks. We've got audiobooks through Libby and Hoopla. We've got manga. We've got graphic novels. We've got comic books. We've got biographies. We've got sci-fi. We've got thrillers. We've got young adult fiction. We've got juvenile fiction. We've got beautiful picture books. But if you're not a bookworm, which you can be, you're capable of it, we've got something for you too. We've got musical instruments. You can learn to play the ukulele, the guitar. We've got board games. We've got video games. We've got a bakeware collection. You can bake cakes, pies, all sorts of cool stuff, courtesy of your local library and a library card. We got parks passes. You can go to the museum for free or discounted, courtesy of your library card. We loan out Wi-Fi hotspots so you can gain access to Wi-Fi at your home, wherever you happen to be in the world, all courtesy of the local library. We've got so many amazing things. What are you waiting for? Get on down to your local library, get a library card. They're free. All you usually need is a picture ID or proof of address, and oftentimes library people will help you out. Library cards, yes!
Didn't you just that was literally the most wholesome thing. Was it weird? That's not weird. That was awesome. Like, what? And now look, this dude makes me want to go to the library right now. Does he make you want to go to the library? And here's my thing. Wouldn't it be awesome if we have more services like the library for all our essential needs as human beings? Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be awesome? As we collectively own these goods and services so that we don't have to worry about our health and things like that being at jeopardy at the whims of profit. Like, that's the thing. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to highlight this, because this guy's like, oh, people are getting weirder. What's so weird? And then Mike Howe had a comment. And this kind of breaks your heart. He says, some of the comments in this thread are the cruelest things I've ever read in a very long time. I adore the library. I love being a librarian. Worked my way up from shelver to supervising librarian. Everyone has bad days. Hope y'all know that you'll always belong at the library. That's pure, man. And so this guy just, he's a sweetheart of a guy. So when people talk about somebody like him, calling him weird, it's like, well, nah, this guy is one of the coolest. And you gotta appreciate his love for this. And it's really an institution. A library is really an institution that actually is there for the people. It's not there for just, certain people. It's for all of us. And so I really just appreciate his enthusiasm, his love for books. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to highlight him. And so I just wanted to say I appreciate him. And the things that he's doing, I would love to have him on to talk about this as well, because ultimately, he's doing good work for the people. He's literally serving his community as a librarian. So, and I think that we can, do so much good. Earl Laurel says library is dead in internet age. It doesn't have to be. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be dead. That's the thing. I think that we can still utilize it, and just like, there's graphic novels, you can do audiobooks. Like, audiobooks are available through the libraries now. Some of us still want to touch a book. Some of us want to be able to, touch these books and read them and have these mediums. You know what I'm saying? Some of us would like to do that. But at the same time, if you don't want to, you don't necessarily have it. So, but I think that's important. So, but yes, so I think we can still do really good as far as that's concerned. But I just wanted to share that. He's awesome. Let me share his Twitter in the chat so you guys can give him a follow and send him some love, because he's a sweetheart of a guy. And, people calling him weird like that, it's uncalled for, man. We got to be kind to each other, especially people who are serving the public like that in these spaces. So, yeah, I just wanted to do that. But yes, Let me go to the chat really quick as well. Oh, plus I forgot. I got to get to that poll. Right, Raziel? Raziel says, I want to go to the library so bad right now. Right? My goodness. I would just love to. Going back to the earlier story, KD came in the chat, says Yemen is so gangster for that, and they're the only ones actually following international law and preventing genocidal acts. Absolutely, I think Yemen was gangster for that, and I gotta give it up to Yemen for that. Topsy Turvy, Happy New Year to you. Oh, thank you so very much. Bad Cookie says, love the curl. You went all out. Yeah. I was just like, let me just add just a little bit of stuff. Anywho, thank you so very much to Savvy for being in the chat. Not sure if you're still here, but thank you so very much. Jacqueline says, KD was fantastic. Thank you for inviting him on. Bit awkward typing. I'm bent over my laptop. Oh, Jacqueline. Oh, I hope you get into a more comfortable position very soon. Thank you so very much for tuning in, by the way. Appreciate it. Let me see. Big Basil says, Happy New Year from Romford. Where is that? Where's Romford? I don't know. Social emotional learning with Dr. Donnie. Thank you so very much. I appreciate it. Let me see. I think you just celebrate Happy New Year, Basil. Mastermind Hours also in the chat. Jacqueline says, the less ethical a company is in regards to hiring practices, etc., the more it should be taxed. That's an interesting thought. Ilhanar says, I grew up in the 80s. I remember our culture. It taught us greed is good. We've been raised to consume without questioning why. That's the American ideology. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Javel says, Happy New Year's Eve, y'all. Happy New Year's Eve to you. Nice to have you as well in the chat. I'm trying to see some people who I may have missed. Why did I sing it like that? Dear God. Hey, Wadi. Wadi's also in the chat. Good to see you. Zach says, free Mumia. Absolutely. Free Mumia. Danny said, JB and his Sunday's best. Thank you so very much. Look, I can go all out if I really want to. Just saying. Sakudo says, damn, Jay. Oh, thank you. This is like, I probably got like 150 ties. I usually have like 300. Notori! Good to see you, Notori. Got the sister in the chat. All right. Oh, CBC, what you cooking? Tell me what you cooking. Zach says, greetings from 2024 in Spain. Bienvenido. Zach, bienvenido, hermano. Yeah, I know a little bit Spanish. I know a little bit. Nessa says, Happy New Year at JB. Oh, thank you so very much. All right, let's go back down to the new comments. Yes. Sula Moon. Hello. Good to see you. And then Ellen coming in. All right. Okay. All right, guys. So I'm going to head on out. I went over a little bit further than what I wanted to, but I just wanted to talk about this. And just a couple of things also as far as this new year, this past year. One of the rougher sides of this year that it was tough. was the loss of my grandmother. Lorraine Wilnette Sproul. She passed away. I think she would have turned 90 this year. 89 or 90. And that was tough. We found out that she had died at the same time my uncle found out when the cops walked into the house and discovered her. She was a strong woman. She was a woman that did not play. But she was one of those women that encouraged and applauded when women were outspoken, when women stood on business and said what they needed to say. That was my grandmother. She was a spitfire. She was a professional seamstress. If you went into her house, you could walk in and then you would walk into the dining room and you would see the industrial table sewing machine. And she had 2 of those among other sewing machines throughout the house. She could dress to the nine. And she was just a beautiful, beautiful woman. Let me see if I can share her photo. No, I don't want a video file, do I? No. And so I just really appreciate her, man. And the fact that she passed, you know, she was going through, memory loss and some health issues, but her death was unexpected because she was still living on her own, And so the impact that she left on my family was beautiful. And I will always, remember her for who she was and try to emulate the example that she set, and being open and honest and continuously showing her integrity. Let me see if I can find it. I think I shared it on, yeah, here it is. This was my grandmom. Yeah, she would have been 90 next year. And yeah, she was a beautiful person. So I lost her this year. And so I hope that as we go into the new year, we get ourselves to a point where even when tragedy strikes, we have the strength and the endurance to get through it, to come out on the other side better, to grow, to be the best version of ourselves. Tough times are going to happen. That's inevitable. But how you get through the tough times, how you work through them, is also what matters. Compassion is what's going to save the world. Kindness is what's going to save the world. You don't know what people are going through, so it's best to be as kind as you possibly can. Like the late Michael Brooks said, be kind to others, but be ruthless to systems and institutions. That kindness part, that piece right there, is what's essential. And as people like myself talk about revolution, a lot of times people think about revolution, they think about the violent aspects of it. But revolution is more than just that. A revolution could be not just something that's violent, but revolution can also be something that's prolific in turning our system around to something that's better. A revolution, by definition, is really a complete turning, a 180 from what it originally was. By that being said, we want a complete turnaround of the system that we have to something that is beneficial to other people. But what about the revolution within yourself? The revolution of doing a complete 180, a complete turning around of the negative parts of yourself so that you can be the best version of yourself and also leave the world better than you found it. I think that's the point that I want to get across to people, is to not only improve your own world, but improve the world of everyone that's around you, of everybody that you come in contact with. Are there going to be people that are going to piss you off? Yes. Are there going to be people that are going to get angry at you? Yes. Are there going to be people who are jealous of you? Yes. Are there going to be people that are going to do better than you? Yes. But how you deal with it, how you approach it, is what matters. And if you do it from a kind and compassionate way, then that is what's going to matter. That is what is going to help you and help them. Even if you don't see the results of it immediately, what helps is that you are the kindest version. Now, this means, and maybe even defending others from atrocity, but you do the best that you possibly can to make the world better. This means running away from this ideology of exploitation, of using people for your own ends. It's persuading people to look out for the little person, look out for the person who is the most disenfranchised, look out for the person who is the most exploited. Because there are people that are hurting out here. But realize that it takes more than just a vote. It takes more than just passing out toiletries. Sometimes the best mutual aid you can deliver is just by being kind, by being loving to people. You cannot institute a revolution without love. You can't. You cannot institute a better system without actually having love and kindness, compassion, compersion for other people. What is compersion? Compersion is the opposite of jealousy. It's when something good happens to somebody, you feel good about the goodness that's happening to them, and you do not want that goodness to leave them. That's what compersion is. It is the opposite of jealousy. If somebody in another state gets a ballot initiative and they pass it for universal health care, your compersion will allow you to clap it up, to feel happy for that person that they now have universal health care. And guess what? It's going to spill over into your state and the other state and the other state. If they get rid of qualified immunity, your compersion will allow you to clap it up for them in that state so that it spills over into the other state and another state and another state. If somebody's doing mutual aid in their state and it influences somebody to do it in their state, and then guess what? You have compersion and it spills over and it goes over and over and over. And then people start to do more for others in their community. Be happy for those people. The only envy you should have is the envy to do what they can do. And let your actions drive that envy to do better for other people. As we go into this new year in 2024, there's a challenge to every single one of you to be better than who you were in 2023. When you see your loved ones, don't just be like, hey, let them know that they're appreciated, because you don't know when you'll see them again. Make sure to tell them that you love them. Tell that to your friend. Is there a friend that you haven't talked to in a while? Send them a text. Send them a message. Give them a call. Let them know that you were just thinking about them and you were on their mind. Okay? When you see somebody homeless in the street, acknowledge them. Smile at them. Say hello. If you don't have the means to help them materially, help them emotionally. Do that. Because that is also mutual aid. Help them mentally and emotionally to stay in a more positive space. This world beats down on them. Don't you do it. You do for them what you would want somebody to do for you. Water your plants. Water yourselves. Leave the world better than you found it. And if you want to, smoke them if you got them, drink them if you got them. If you ain't got them, then read something. Because joy in reading is fundamental. Watch something funny, because joy is revolutionary. Hug your loved ones a little tighter today, because love is revolutionary. And have a safe, joyful, and compassionate new year. Love you all, and take care. And a big mwah, forehead kisses to every single one of you. Happy New Year.